I'm happy that we're going to have the opportunity to share with people the importance of vaccines.
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, I'm so happy we are vaccinated.
Yes.
So that we can actually come out and enjoy this environment because it's a beautiful day outside.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that so many people have taken advantage of the vaccine and that we were able to get the vaccine.
Yes.
It really has made all the difference, and we're doing our part to flatten that curve.
Yeah.
I do think that it's important that everybody has the information they need to make an informed decision.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend that you check the resources that are available to you. You want to make sure you follow doctors that you trust. One thing that has been very helpful for me in terms of making my decision, Dr. Cameron Webb. He does a live stream every single Monday with Dr. Tyson Bell from UVA.
So how would I find out? Because I'm not familiar with those folks.
Oh, really? Okay, so he has a Facebook page, and he
Okay.
does a Facebook Live every single Monday. He does a weekly COVID-19 update.
Oh, perfect.
And he's relatable. You can understand everything that he's saying. He's not speaking in big scientific terms.
Okay.
He breaks it all the way down. And he tells you about how this vaccine is helpful. He also shares his personal story about how his entire family is vaccinated.
Wow.
So
okay.
it really made me trust him. Dr. Tyson Bell is also an excellent resource. He's with him every Monday as well.
Cool.
And Dr. Barrett is actually a Black woman who helped develop the Moderna vaccine.
Which is the one I got.
Yes,
okay.
Me too. and so I think that these are doctors, especially in our community, these are trusted sources. And
Good.
so you can go to them and look for it, and you don't have to feel like you're being brainwashed or pushed in or something, but these are people that we can trust to do right by our community.
Right. That's good, because I know a lot of people are apprehensive because of all the misinformation out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know that there are some trusted resources that folks can rely on. You know what? I think another good idea too for people who are apprehensive is talk to your regular doctor, because your doctor can tell you if you're at a higher risk, and they can also talk you through whether or not you may have any adverse reactions to getting the vaccine. So I think that's like an up close and personal, reliable source medical advice, and I know you, so
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's a good thing people should look into also.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, because nobody knows you better. They know your full medical history, and
Right.
you go to them for everything else that you would need medically. So
Exactly.
who's a better resource than the person that handles your medical care?
That's really good. And and I didn't think about that at first either, so now that I think more about that, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make sure that as I'm talking to people about it, I remind them, talk to your doctor, and just, there's so much information out there, and sometimes you can also become inundated with, is this good information or bad information? But just kind of identify those reliable sources like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and really follow and pay attention to what they're saying, because ultimately we want folks to just get vaccinated, but make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think we do have to acknowledge that it's an individual decision.
It is.
It's a personal decision.
Right.
But, as leaders in our community, I do think it's important for us to make sure that we provide as much information and resources as possible.
Right.
So that people can come to the decision that is supported by science and that's medically necessary.
Yeah. It is all about, as with anything in life, it's all about making an informed decision, what's best for you and yours. But in this case, you want to keep in mind that you may have to take that extra step in order to make an informed decision, because you want to make sure that you're doing what's best for the community around you too, for you, your family, the community around you. Because like you said, that's the only way we're going to flatten the curve.
Praise the Lord.
We have to get vaccinated.
And then in addition to that, I think we have to also kind of weigh the pros and cons.
True.
And we want to say, okay, would you rather get this vaccination or would you rather be on a ventilator? You don't want the ventilator. So, I mean, yeah, the vaccine, you might have some side effects. You might be, uncomfortable for a couple days. But ultimately, the goal is to prevent being on that ventilator, so that you can be there for your family and your friends.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about side effects. I didn't have many, but I did have, a little bit of discomfort, but we'll come back to that though.
I hear you.
Definitely. Ultimately though, I think it was a good decision for me and my family. And, like I said, I just want people to make the decision that's best for them, their family, and the people around them.
Yeah, understood. I agree completely.
All right. I hope everyone enjoyed that video. This is Vice Mayor Monae Nickerson from the town of Dumfries, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Councilwoman Selonia Miles. Good evening. How are you, Councilwoman?
Good evening, Vice Mayor. How are you? It's nice to see you again.
Thank you, you too. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this conversation with me and also the time we took to film that video because I think it's important that we have a conversation about COVID-19 and what that means for our community specifically. So let me ask you the question it seems to be like an icebreaker nowadays. Did you get the vaccine?
Absolutely. But first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to have this conversation with you because I know that this is a subject that's close to both of our hearts. And
Hmm.
our community is also close to our hearts, and we want what's best for everyone. So I actually did get the vaccine. I got the Moderna vaccine about 8 weeks ago, and I feel great.
Good, good. Well, I too received the vaccine. I also got the Moderna. I had my second dose. Friday will be 2 weeks ago. And so, did you have any discomfort or side effects? How did it work out for you?
Okay, so since this is all about honesty,
Right.
I am going to say that I did have I got my first dose and I didn't have very many side effects. I
Okay.
got my second dose and I did have some discomfort. Um,
Hmm.
and I think, as with anything, I want to be completely honest with everyone. There were side effects. You
Hmm.
want to do what's best for the community. You want to do what's best for you. There was some, flu-like symptoms, but in the end, it was a small price to pay to keep myself and my family safe from COVID-19. So
Absolutely.
there were some side effects for a few days.
So for me, I too had some discomfort. It's funny, my husband and I got it at the same time, and what we felt was different. So for me, well, let me start with what we had in common. So we both had the sore arm, the arm feeling a little stiff in general, and being sore at the injection site. For him, he experienced some chills, and when he told me, he was like, babe, I have chills. What about you? I was like, you don't have chills. It has nothing to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about because I don't have chills. But later on that day, I did then begin to feel very heavy and a little lethargic. That evening, I slept well. The next morning, aside from a little bit of stiffness, I was good to go. His chills came and went. It wasn't like debilitating, you know what I mean? He was a little uncomfortable, but like you said, that was a small price to pay in consideration for the big picture for our community, our families. It's one of those things where, it's a little bit of discomfort for a lot of comfort,
Mhm.
so let me ask you a question. I had some apprehensions about taking the vaccine, and we're going to talk about that because I want to be honest with what my apprehensions were. But let me ask you first: did you have any concerns about getting the vaccine before you actually signed up to get it?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, I did. When I first heard about the vaccine, this was a year ago, and we were under a totally different climate. And I had some concerns about a vaccine. I'm like, oh, really? There's a vaccine coming out? I don't know about all that. um, but I actually had a conversation with my neurologist. I see a neurologist regularly because I suffer from migraine headaches, and just fortunately, I have been seeing the same neurologist since I was about 14 years old, and
Hmm.
I trust her completely. She always breaks it down. She's a straight shooter, and she has always taken great care of me. And also, my son sees her as well, so I trust her implicitly. And I was talking to her, and I was like, I don't know about this vaccine business, Dr. John. And she said, my dear, I would not steer you wrong.
Hmm.
You can't, I understand that you're afraid, but everybody all over the world is getting this vaccine. That's why it's not going to take as long as it generally gets to get a vaccine out. And she was like, and I myself am working with this too. I'm volunteering to help. So
Hmm.
when this comes out, you can feel safe to get this vaccine. You don't have to be afraid. And she said, I won't steer you wrong. And she broke down some other facts to me that made complete sense. So I said, you know what, Dr. Jahan, you're right. I feel comfortable with that. And so
Hmm.
she said, so when it comes out, I don't know what the process is going to look like because it's new. And I said, okay, okay. So whenever it comes out, I'm definitely going to sign up for it, and I'm going to get the vaccine. And from that moment forward,
I was fine with it. And I got it. Not only did I get it, I signed my child up for the vaccine, and we both were vaccinated. And back to an earlier question about the differences, I had side effects, but my son has been living his best life. He didn't have any side effects.
He's younger and more vibrant, so so that's good. So there's a question. I want to answer this question because it's a really good question, and then I'll go back to my original apprehensions. So Miss Mayberry is asking whether or not we plan on traveling now that we're vaccinated. For me, I do. I do intend on traveling. I will do so using the same precautions I had been using prior to becoming vaccinated. I will still wear my mask with diligence. I will still continue to sanitize my hands, keep my hands clean, keep my hands out of my face. All those precautionary measures that I was taking prior to having been vaccinated, I will continue those measures for my safety, just because I still want to make sure that now, for me, the vaccine serves as an extra layer of defense, in addition to washing my hands and taking those other precautionary measures. What about you, Councilwoman Miles? Do you plan on traveling?
Not yet. I plan on keeping it local for just a little while longer.
Okay.
I want to see some more folks get vaccinated. If I do leave, I can see myself visiting family, because it's a smaller group, and the majority of my family is vaccinated.
Okay.
But I don't see myself taking any trips to like out of the country or anything, not just yet. So,
Okay.
but down the road,
Right.
when we have some more herd immunity going on.
Herd immunity is a really good term for people to familiarize themselves with. I want to just backtrack a little bit to when I asked you about whether or not you had apprehensions. So, I engage in a lot of kitchen table talk, and that's kind of like that free speech around the kitchen table, no judgment zone. And one of the things that I heard, and I also subscribed to the thought process myself, was I don't know if I fully trust the system
Hmm.
to get vaccinated, because for me personally, I immediately thought about the Tuskegee syphilis study, and how, going back in history, just kind of thinking about how, you know, the government was involved in that study. So my immediate thought was, wait a minute, we know that COVID has disproportionately affected our minority communities. And am I going to volunteer to stand on the front line to get this experimental vaccine? That was my initial thought. And because of that, when asked originally, are you interested? I said, no, I'm not, because, let some other people be the test dummies, is really how I said it. That's not nice to say, but that was really my thought process. And you know me, I'm pretty transparent with my thoughts. So, but after kind of going through that thought process, I took a long pause and I decided to have faith in humanity, and
Hmm.
to recognize that we are not the same people as a country that we once were. Though there are some apples who still think that they should be doing things a certain way, I recognize that we're not the same people that we were back in 1930s. And so, having faith in humanity, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this vaccine, because ultimately, despite my personal fears, this decision is for me and the people around me. So that's pretty much how I got to a place of sign me up. When can I get it? What's taking so long?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think anytime something new is coming out, it's normal to ask questions. It's normal to be a little apprehensive about it. It is,
Hmm.
you know, it's normal to want to see what happens first.
Hmm.
Glad that you got to that place. Um, there's a question on the screen. Are we doing anything to reach those who are homebound, that may not have friends or family? The answer to that question is that yes, we are working very closely with the county. The county is the lead with that. We actually did have Mr. Eliza Johnson come to our last council meeting, and he's working very closely to get our homebound seniors and other individuals with disabilities access to the vaccination. I do work with the disability community. That's a area that's very close to my heart. those that do not generally have access in that community is often very overlooked. That community was actually included in the 1A category, and they were among the first group that was eligible for the vaccination. Sorry, Monae.
No. Thank you for answering that question. It was a great question. Thank you for answering it. So we were apprehensive. We went out and we got the vaccines. So now tell me, how do you feel about, or how do you respond to people who are saying, I'm not getting it because of XYZ? What advice would you give? I have my things that I like to say to folks, but what do you say to people who say, I don't want it, I'm not interested, it's a conspiracy or whatever?
Well, I like to reinforce the science. If you feel that it's a conspiracy, I like to share my experience for one. I get why you might think it's a conspiracy. We are, especially in our community, we're very familiar with the Tuskegee experiment, and historically, the medical community has not done us right. Let's address that elephant in the room. But I share my experience and my experience with my physician, and she told us, like, this is why it's happening so fast. You can look and see how everyone in the world is taking this vaccination. We're not targeting any segment of the community. And it's literally saving lives every single day. And the science shows how it's working. So this is not a conspiracy. And then I like to also refer them to the science. And I say, okay, you don't have to take my word for it. Let me show you some resources that I trust. There is a doctor that I love to follow. He has a Facebook live stream every Monday, Dr. Cameron Webb, and he's on with Dr. Tyson Bell. Listen to these gentlemen. They are from our community. Dr. Cameron Webb, he actually is a policy advisor for health equity in the White House. And he knows his stuff backwards and forwards, and you can relate to everything he says. He's very clear on his delivery on the vaccination and how it works. Listen to people that have been here for our community, and you have to, at a certain point, you have to trust somebody.
Exactly.
You have to trust someone. And I just like to share that information. And it's just like, either you're going to take the vaccination or you're going to risk getting COVID. So at that point, you have a decision that you have to make. And that would be my advice. On another note, I do also want to share, locally, the Prince William Public Library system has a program called Magic. And you can contact the Chin Park Library, and they will do research for you on the statistics for COVID-19 and the vaccination results and how it has saved people. So if you want that information, there is a local resource for you where you can get those numbers for you, and then you can make an informed decision. So that would be my advice, and that's what I'd share with people so they could go about making an informed decision.
Yes, ma'am. Making an informed decision. Thank you for mentioning that, because for me, that's what this conversation is about. This is about me sharing my experiences, and my experiences don't necessarily have to look like someone else's. Hearing your experiences, and thank you for sharing. But it really is about making an informed decision. I am not standing on a podium telling anybody, go get tested. You have to, you must. What I'm saying to people, and I hope that this resonates loud and clear, it is important, not just with regard to COVID, but with anything. Make an informed decision. Identify trusted resources, do your research, and make an informed decision. I will also add to that once you've gotten the information to help guide your decision, then think about the impacts of your decision. If you decide not to, you very well, that's up to you. I would rather if you did, but if you decide not to, that's your choice. But just remember that the decision you make on whether or not you're going to get vaccinated is not just about you. That decision, once you decide to or not to get vaccinated, not only impacts you, but your immediate family, your immediate nucleus, the people around you, the people you encounter. If you leave your house, the people you encounter. If you don't leave your house, the people who come into your home. It's just one of those things where we have to recognize that these decisions, or this decision, is very far reaching. And so making an informed decision is very important. One of the things we talked about in the video also was talk to your doctor. Talk to whomever your primary care physician is, because your doctor should be able to tell you you are at a higher risk for contracting, or you're at a lower risk for contracting, or this is what could happen to you if you contract, or considering that there have been some adverse reactions to it, these are your risks associated with adverse reactions. And we can't ignore the elephant in the room. People have had adverse reactions up to and including death with regard to one of the other vaccines, the one dose vaccine that was out there. What do you say to someone who says that's proof that it doesn't work and I don't want to do it?
I would say my heart truly goes out to anyone who has lost their life as a result of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and also those who have experienced blood clots as it relates to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Because that's a horrible experience for the loved ones of those people. I know that it's devastating to lose a loved one. So my thoughts and prayers are definitely with them. That's something that must be rectified immediately. I would also point out that the immediate response that the CDC took in order to make that right is an example of the science working. And there's no excuse for what happened. There's no excuse. I do want to point out, though, that once they realized that there was a demographic that was having an adverse effect to that vaccine, they put a halt to it immediately.
Yes, they did.
And they said, okay, no, we cannot do this until we figure out why this is happening, and we figure out how we treat it so that this does not happen again. That is an example of it working. So they didn't simply brush off and say, okay, we're talking about 6 people out of 6 million, so it could be brushed off. They said, no, these are 6 lives and we can't have another 6.
Right.
That's an example of the science working, and it's very unfortunate, but they are making it right. So I think that we can't lose sight of that. That happens in any medical thing. That can happen with aspirin.
Absolutely.
That can happen with, and it's always sad. I do think you have to look at the totality of the situation.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, my heart goes out to anyone who has lost their life as a result of that. I do caution everyone to look at the totality of the situation and look at the swiftness of how the CDC has approached that situation to rectify it. So that would be my response to that.
That's a great answer, and I too, I too understand that those were some very unfortunate cases. My heart goes out to those families as well. I do want to say to folks, it takes me back to making an informed decision, and also recognizing that, like you said, Councilwoman Miles, with every medical breakthrough we have, there's going to be some trial and error. Unfortunately, different people will have different effects based on how their genetic makeup. And I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that. Sometimes it takes kind of those things happening in order to trigger a response of, okay, stop, let's go back to the drawing board and let's refigure this out. And like you said, the CDC had a great response and a great, they responded quickly. They halted the use of it. We're not going to do that no more. We'll go back and we'll figure it out. So I think it also takes me back to really just kind of trusting in the process, recognizing that all of this is a process. Eradicating COVID or flattening the curve is going to be a process that we all have to live through. And I really humbly encourage and ask folks, make an informed decision, do what's right for you, the people around you. Recognize your impact on the community. When you're going to the grocery store, when you're going to your doctor's appointments, every person that you come in contact with, you are at risk of contracting, or giving the disease to someone, the virus to someone. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your best to flatten the curve, and that's really what it boils down to. So one other question for you: the vaccine card. So I have a card, and I've been reading a lot about how important it is to maintain that card. We need to make sure that we hold on to it. that I've even read someone refer to it as keep it as secure as you would your social security card. Because I noticed that there are some boxes on the bottom of that card that makes it look like there could be a potential for boosters or additional vaccines. Do you carry your card? Do you keep it at home? How are you securing your card?
Okay, so I do have pictures of my card
Mhm.
now, and also my son's card, but I do carry my cards with me as well because
Okay.
I feel like I never know when I'm going to have to show proof of vaccination.
Right.
I do actually have them with me at all times.
Hmm. Yeah. Someone has a comment. I got my second dose yesterday, and I stand by my decision to get vaccinated. That's great. I'm happy that you did,
Excellent.
and I hope that you will share that message with your circles and let them know. I stand by my decision to get vaccinated too. And as far as the card is concerned, I do not carry mine, but I have taken a picture of it. So as long as my Android's working, then I have a picture of my card to show somebody if needed, and I can always, get to it at home. But I am protecting it. So, is there anything else that you want to share for the good of the community with regard to COVID? I think we've touched on everything. Is there anything else that you want to just kind of bring back home to those who are joining us this evening?
Yes, I would just like to thank everyone who has already gotten vaccinated. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, and thank you for doing your parts to keep your family safe, keeping yourself safe, and keeping our community safe. And for anyone who is a little apprehensive about getting vaccinated, I just want to stress that it is okay to have a little apprehension. I would just please stress that you get more information. That if you have questions, it's okay to have questions, get the answers that you need, and please come to the decision that is supported by science, that is in the best interest of everyone in flattening the curve to keep yourself safe and to keep your loved ones safe. So, and also thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miles, I so very much appreciate your time. I appreciate you opening yourself up and sharing your experiences and having this conversation with me. What I want everybody to walk away from this video or this message is to make sure to make an informed decision and make sure that you make a decision that looks at and considers the impact of that decision. So what we want to do is flatten the curve, keep our mask on, keep our hands sanitized, keep our hands washed, and continue to social distance. I appreciate everyone joining us this evening. And you can reach out to me or Councilwoman Miles if you have any additional questions, comments, concerns, or feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.